make sure my hair not sticking out.
Good morning, everyone. Connection available. Good morning. This is Leah with Providence Women's Healthcare and another Tuesday Talks we have today. We'll be talking today about having a doula and what it's like. We're going to go through the experience. And today is a special day because we have a guest with us, Kaprice Welsh, who is a certified midwife here at Providence. We'll be talking with Shaconna. I'm so sorry. Shaconna Haley with Inner Light Holistic
Prenatal and Birth Doula Services.
Prenatal and Birth Doula Services. See, that's why she's back there. So we're going to have a great conversation today. So if you were ever thinking about having a doula, today you're in the right place because you're going to get a lot of information that you need to move forward in this process. All right? So we're going to get started with the interview. You guys can take it from here. I'm going to move out the way because I got nothing. So.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I'm so glad that my friend Shaconna Haley decided to speak with me about what she does as a doula. I met Shaconna a few years ago, and we kind of really connected, and I got to learn way more than I knew about doulas and what they do and the work that they do and different doulas. During some of my births, I have worked with doulas in the past, but I don't know, Shaconna was a special kind of doula. And I got to learn really sort of the inner workings of what you do. That was a great experience. We used to do some talks and I met a bunch of doulas and dessert, and we had doulas and tea, and we did yoga. We did a bunch of great things, really just connecting, me connecting with them and connecting them all together. And that was a great experience for me. And I got to learn a lot about you all. So I wanted to invite you to just talk with me about doulas, because I think some people know what doulas are and what you do and kind of what all you offer. But I learned a lot, so I thought it would be great to talk with her. I'm sure some people might know what a doula does, but don't really know all the inner workings of what's involved in getting a doula. What do they offer, sort of some little logistical kind of things. So, Shaconna, why do women choose to have a doula?
I think primarily, there's three different types of doulas, kind of fall into three different pockets. There's a antepartum prenatal doula who's just solely preparing for some preconception, but also preparing for childbirth, which overlaps them with your labor or birth doula, who does everything from the prenatal education, provides continuity of care from the time that they contract with you to a couple visits postpartum. And then you have your postpartum doula who picks up and does postpartum care or that fourth trimester care and helps you in the home, helps mom get reintegrated, integrating the new baby into the family, and overall. But the core doula we're talking about in terms of straddling both sides is your birth labor doula, providing that continuity of care, physical support, educational support, advocacy, and psychological and metaphysical support as well, depending on the style of that doula in particular and what her philosophy is around birth that may align with your own. So
does that really so in the beginning, if I wanted a doula, I mean, when I had my first child, I knew what a doula was. I had my baby in New York at a birth center. I thought, oh, my husband will be there. He'll help me. And my midwife would be there and she'll help me. Talk to me a little bit about, like, why would I seek out to have a doula involved in my birth and what the benefit of that for me as, going through the labor and what you would offer me?
Well, in general, doulas help rates of cesarean or premature births. They help all the stats that are negative in birth come down. It's evidence-based work has supported, and studies have supported the presence of an informed, experienced, trained support person helps decrease negative outcomes, and it increases the woman's ability to have a positive outcome in birth. So that being said, in partnership which is very different from your mom or your partner. And the doula works as part of your birth team, which includes your partner, to support the whole family unit and your partner in navigating through that birth.
So you're a support to the mom
And the family.
Oh,
and the
okay.
family.
So I'm not having you instead of my husband.
No, it's not a
or
replacement.
instead of my mother.
No.
Or my girlfriend.
The intentionality of it is really having an approach that is family-centric.
Okay.
And you are hired to support the family and bringing that child earthside, as we say, holding space for that family and really educating them on the process. So it's not just someone there, sometimes like, oh, it's just emotional support. I mean, but your family doesn't just get to be that person connects to you having their own reaction. Your husband or your partner is vulnerable in that process, no matter whether it's the first child or the fourth child. They too need support. So it's not an either or type of thing.
Okay.
Your mom is vulnerable. And, so we're thinking about these replaceable parts, but they can be exactly who they need to be. And the doula just helps that family navigate that space and get more informed about birth options, which is a huge part of how doulas became more integrated into births and why moms want to know what their options are, because they're feeling lots of sensation.
Okay.
So in the process, but moving up to it, there's lots of fear, and we're trying to abate a lot of that.
So do you start that work? Like so if I'm looking for a doula, I say, okay, I've decided, I want a doula for my birth. What do I do? Do I get you just for the labor part, or do we kind of get connected before that time so you can kind of learn about me and I can see if you're a good fit for me? When does that all sort of really happen?
Fit is key. It starts as soon as your awareness begins that maybe I want somebody to help my family get through this process. So as soon as they contract you, and you do have a contract, it's not, so you have to kind of consider whose philosophy aligns with mine, what kind of backup do they have.
When you say backup, what do you mean?
Backup doula, in case something happens.
Oh, in case you're not there.
In case, yeah, because anything can happen. It could be you don't call in time.
Okay.
Anything can happen, but all of that is in the contract. I mean, doulas don't do. Let's to be clear, doulas don't do anything medical. Although they are aware of medical issues, particularly the more experienced. So we want to know what kind of experience they've had.
Okay.
What kind of certification or training they've had, because I've been a doula 20 plus years. I only go to things to reinforce my continuing education, but there's some doulas who've been so long, they don't need to necessarily get certification again, but you should necessarily, and that's really certification with the body, not necessarily that previously they didn't have it, but life is life. That being said, you have continuing education is a necessary part of the process. And when I train doulas, or when I've been with doulas in that way and have hosted doulas and mentored doulas, that's something I really reinforce.
Certified?
Certified and or have the experience of training.
Okay.
So if they can demonstrate that, that's fine. And not YouTube. I did have somebody ask me that, and I'm being an old head being somebody who's been a doula for so as long as I have, I don't use YouTube for anything other than like maybe techniques are being observed. But training is in a workshop or class.
Okay.
It's not a
just reinforce your
right.
skills.
Yeah, reinforce, but not yeah. But anyway, so other types of things, kind of really just want to see if that doula energy, as we say, and I don't mean in a lofty way, really suits your family, and like you feel like their education.
You can relate to them too.
You can relate to them, yeah. So
and their philosophy.
If their philosophy of birth and how they work with families, and my philosophy is relationship and really making sure the family is shored up and understanding the dynamics in relationship. For example, I'm saying a relationship are taken into account, because one thing that is not really addressed is things that block women from getting through from pregnancy, block through pregnancy, block through labor. And it's very important. So this is part of mine. So you want to really try to see if they do that. Now we meet with them. So to the other part of your question. So for me, I need to have 3 sessions with you.
Before.
Prenatal. Doula
okay.
Prenatals. And some people just do one and they spend that one session and that's good.
But how long is that session?
Average like an hour and a half.
Okay.
And for my particular first session, that's usually the longest because we're getting to know each other, so that might go a little longer than that.
Okay.
And I tell my clients that. But the rest of them are like no more than an hour, hour and a half, and then we're done, we're off to. And so depending on when you're hot. Now, some people really wait way late to hire, and I mean like when way late, meaning somebody just emailed me this weekend, they're 38 weeks. So, but generally it's sometime in the early part of the third trimester.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're trying to, in these 3 sessions, educate on navigating fears and concerns, and and it's catered to that client. So that's why that's important. It's a very intimate process. And then the next session we might cover birth planning, birth vision, and then we start to move into the last session into comfort measures and such. And part of that is making sure they have. So for me, I like my clients to do a childbirth class. Now some doulas do it all. I'm a stay in my lane doula.
You don't do childbirth classes.
I do childbirth classes, but I do them. I don't like outside of yeah. But I mean, I do them separate. But I don't like say I'll do your childbirth classes. I'll do no. I feel it's important because I'm also an educator. I'm a sociologist. Do sociology of birth. So I really think it's important you're in a class setting to hear people talking about their experience. Okay. In the same position as you are. Yeah. So I encourage, and sometimes we don't get enough time, like I just said. So I do some spot check because just seeing it on video is not going to really tell you a lot. But hearing how engaging other people helps you to process out things that you feel like you understand, and some things physiologically you just don't know, and that's what a childbirth educator will do, who just does childbirth education. So not that I don't do it, but I'm not like, that's not part of my package unless you want that separately.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, so that's good to know, because I think if I thought I was getting a doula, I think you would do everything. But you're saying that if I want childbirth classes, I could go out and get childbirth classes, and that experience with other women who are having babies and going through the same thing is beneficial for me as a woman, as a mom. And then my doula is working with me on, I like that you said overcoming your fears, because I think, a lot of women going into the birth experience have all these preconceived notions about what it is, what it's going to be, fearful about the pain, about having the experience they want going into a hospital.
Those options.
And I want to know what their options are. I know we get, and it can be very anxiety provoking, just going and thinking just the unknown of it all. So I think having the support and information from your doula to help work through some of those things is really a great tool to have. Yeah. So when you meet with them, do the husbands get involved? Okay, so that's one thing that always an anomaly to me. I don't see them separate, but some doulas, in today's society and the schedules we have, I know that some doulas will just meet with the mom, and they haven't met with the partner until the birth. And so that can happen. But from my process, it's important that as I call it, the husband is the oxytocin, the natural drug, because when the husband or partner is there, then you have to be able to engage what keeps that woman calm in the most intimate moment, mostly during transition, but really some of the physical parts where he can just keep her, the partner can keep her very anchored and remind her of who she is. Yes. Right? Yes. In the moment where it's the toughest. And that's where more than one session is definitely important. It's so important. I was going to say something about your point you made, but anyway, it's just important that the partner is focused. It's the central focus. Okay. I always say to my clients, you are the centrifugal force. Then you have your layer of oxytocin, which is the love, and then anyone else, including myself and your provider. We are the ones who kind of hold that space so that you can bring your baby through this process and be on that rite of passage into motherhood together. And then everyone helps you to stay in that bubble of support, helps you to stay there.
So yeah, not separate. The partner is not.
You're like my mental, spiritual guidance through the birth process.
Yeah.
I have my medical team, so you're really part of the team.
It is the
we're
birth
all
team.
working together.
Yes.
I'm handling sort of your medical,
Right.
you're handling my mental, physiological,
right.
My mental, spiritual self
Yeah.
as I go through the process.
Right.
I like that.
Right. And I think
It's a spiritual journey.
It is a spiritual journey.
It is for a lot of people. It's
it
a spiritual
is.
journey.
And I think that's the piece that's not understood, because you're going to have a baby regardless. The physical part's going to happen. Mm-hmm. How long that takes, it makes for, having the presence of this experienced person really does mitigate like the length of your labor. Now, we're talking active labor, not when your labor begins to start having contractions. That's not the beginning of it. And I want women to understand that. But being in the body and knowing that mind over labor, which is not mind over matter, people say that, but it's mind over that process. If you are in the center and you are centered, you can get yourself to be to have a painless labor in that way. And I go over all of that with my clients.
It is so. I usually sell it's mind over matter. It's really
Mm-hmm.
labor is sort of a mental endurance.
It is like a marathon.
It's like a marathon.
Yes.
It's more than
right.
physically. It's one thing, but mentally you have to sort of rise above it and be able to cope and deal with the pain because it's more than you think it will be.
It is.
And sort of you have to really know yourself. And I know what kind of labor I was, and I'm a very internal dealing with things kind of person, so I don't need a lot of talking and touching and talking, and so for me it's an working with my inner self strength, my inner strength to be able to get me through something difficult, and process it.
And that's exactly, and that's one of the things I talk through with my clients is like, so how do you deal with it now? How do you deal with pain and fears now? And how does your partner deal with that?
That's a great point. Yes.
And so we try to use that as an anchor of how to cue up during the actual labor. Like, see that? Remember that? And then like, oh, because it's the reminders, right? And then the physical support, mainly that counter pressure, double hip squeeze. I'll be like, Daddy, we're going to need you to have your upper body strength ready. To get those hip squeezes and the holding and all that. And so I really think it's important that unit really understands how we all work in unison. It is not a separate thing. Historically, we had, the women come in and the men were the protectors. Well, the protective layer is that oxytocin now. That's what I tell my clients. That oxytocin of love from the husband. Yeah. That protection
or partner.
The partner, the husband, the mother, or whoever, true, and that's true. So whoever the identified support person is, because I had recent labor where her husband was like, he couldn't deal with all of that. He had to be downstairs helping their other kids, right? He was like, okay, I had to keep moving. Okay, I can't be there. Her physical support, other than myself, who she had as her identified person that was from her family, was her sister-in-law.
Whoa.
And, now, mind you, I had surgery, so my strength was but so much. But, I still step in. I'm not here to replace anyone who's going to be in. But, you don't want a whole lot of people, and that's what we don't understand as well. Like, oh, my mama going to be there, my grandpa, my this, my that. That's great.
Yeah, you don't have the bandwidth.
There's
to deal
so
with
many energies, no matter how much you love the person, you have your own dynamics. And that can be a block or disruptive. Yeah. So you have to necessarily give yourself the space to labor, touching in and saying, hey, how you doing? Okay. And then stepping back out of that bubble. But you're going to have your rhythm with your immediate partners. So that sister-in-law was very good at double hips. She did all of that. But when we needed that oxytocin, he was ready and he could sense her. And she was ready and she was going into transition toward pushing and was like, I said, please go get oxytocin. Yeah, and sure enough, the sister-in-law just said, he just texted me, said, can he come up now? Good. And that's the kind of energy I like to create with I call it the trifecta of support. Because my clients get that synergy going, and I give homework and stuff like that, so they can start that belly bonding is also their love bonding. not that they didn't have it before, but this is really going in and supporting that and giving space for her to come out of herself, to surrender it all to her love space, so she gets to be who she needs to be throughout labor.
Yeah,
and that's the difference.
That's wonderful. That's really good.
Yeah.
So how do I find a doula? If I want a doula, I mean, it's not advertised on TV.
Right,
How do I find a doula?
So several different ways. Definitely, you can go to doctor spaces, and doulas come to different doctor spaces to present information.
Yes.
Their
At Providence,
businesses.
we have business
Right,
cards
exactly. At
and
Providence,
doulas who work with some of our clients.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But there's doulamatch.net. You can go there.
Doulamatch.net.
There's Facebook pages, so just look up doula, and then you also, honestly, if you just Google doulas in Atlanta, you have all these different businesses that will pop up. But that's, again, kind of, some of them have philosophies, so you want to also see where, I'm an independent doula. There's doula collectives where they have various doulas. Like, I have a backup who I'm backup with another independent doula, so we kind of cover each other. But in the collective, you have a series of people.
Like we do in our midwives.
Yeah, exactly.
I get this one on call, Amanda, Nuria on call. I understand.
And in those collectives, you can interview, see which one you want to be your primary doula, but you'll know that one of those doulas, if there's something that happens, we'll have a backup from the collective.
Well, the other doula is doing another birth.
Which is, exactly, that's usually the case. That is usually the case.
Or just that morning.
Right, yeah, right, or like in the middle of one or wrapping up one. And they'll come stand in until that doula, because labor does not go, unless you have a precipitous birth, you have a lot of time in labor. And that's where we're like, educating women around, your water might break, but it's not like TV. You don't run to the hospital. You got to start now working. Like I tell my client, I know one of the midwives I work with says, Shaconna, you're like the enforcer. You're like, like the drills. I'm like, yes, because now we have a routine. If your water breaks or your mucus plug starts and you start having some contractions, let's start getting to work. Let's go. I give lots of activities to start doing, to start moving, making those contractions become more consistent. So again, that's some physical stuff I'm informing you to do that helps bring about your labor and the progress there. And then when it's time for me to join you, and that depends on the person.
I want you to come soon as it
I want you to right. Because if I come too early, then you're not engaging your body, right? Okay. You're just thinking I'm coming to be your savior. And that's not what it is. I'm here to help you through that. Like, let's now work and get you through the tough part to get to pushing your baby out. So again, and I think, that's what I was going to say earlier, that non-medicated versus medicated birth, natural, vaginal, like all those things to be clarified, right? And then, a vaginal non-medicated birth might be the goal for some, or a medicated birth.
And you come to both.
And I come to both.
Just because I get a doula doesn't mean I want
That's right.
That's a good point. That's
most of my births, for the first, I want to say, my initial births were home births, but that's because I was rolling with my friends who were doing birth centers and home births. But most of my births have been in the hospital. I mean, there's a lot more to navigate in terms of fears once you change environment from your home. The goal of most doulas and I would say OBs and midwives is to have you labor at home as long as possible. And it's the whole conversation around false labor and all that. You don't have to be afraid of that. But if you are intentional in your process, which your doula supports you in doing, then you are able to labor at home. I mean, I get a lot of my clients, and this for the non-educated person, pregnant mom, and I show them like, okay, what's early labor? And I show them this little picture. What's early labor? And I show them what 10 centimeters dilated is. And I said, read this paragraph. And I said, what number does it say? It says 0 to 6 centimeters. And I was like, yeah. When do you think that women show up at the hospital screaming like it's the worst thing ever? And screaming doesn't happen with my clients. We don't do that.
You don't do screaming.
We don't do that. And that's part of that management of, knowing about your pain levels, fears, and all that. But changing environments. Right. Yeah. I mean, changing environments does trigger that when you move from your safe space of your home to the hospital, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
Right? But when I say that, I'm like 6 centimeters before. That's all early labor. Right? But the average woman shows up at the hospital with about 3 3-4 centimeters.
Yeah, about 3.
At the max.
Yeah.
You know, but they might come 1, 2.
Yeah, they do.
Right, because one, if the water breaks,
right.
you know.
And sometimes, depending on the conversation, once the water breaks or contractions start,
depends on what's happening with that.
Touch base with their midwife, get instructions about what they should do,
exactly,
and kind of what they need to do, and then touch base with you is a good idea.
Exactly.
The midwife say, well, you want to walk around, see if labor starts.
Right.
Sounds like it's early. There's no complications or reason I need you to come right in.
Exactly.
Like, your strep is not positive or something where I want to give you antibiotics.
Exactly.
You have a little wiggle room there, then that's the time to connect with your doula.
And get your things.
Get your plan. Get your plan.
Right.
How am I going to make it through this early stage?
And speaking of plans, like, so the birth plan is not like, this is what I want as this out, like, you know, like a fear-based document. It really is your intentions and and what you want to move through in case you get to different phases, that people understand what your philosophy and your wishes are. Yeah. But not like this, like, you better do what I said. It's more that everybody's on the same page of what you're trying, your goal.
Right. Your
provider, who your support people are, and how you want to navigate the labor as best as possible.
Like I am the author of this experience. Right.
It's
I'm laying it out, my outline of what I want.
Right. And your authoritative voice. And I think that's what women don't understand too. Women specifically and their families. Your voice is the voice that's being listened to, or should be listened to. Let me just make sure that's there. And I know at Providence, I know that's honoring that. That's why Dr. Nelson Allen has, you know, a midwifery component too, to balance that out to serve women in that way. But the women's voice and family being centric to the process, right? So.
That's awesome. Now, so they can go on these websites and find out, how do I get a doula? And you just email or whatever the contact information is.
And you email, and you should interview
interview a couple.
Interview at least 2. Some people are like, oh, I know I want you to be. I'm like, well, you know, I always be like, whether or not you choose me, you know, that kind of thing. But you should, like, at least, you know, 2 or 3 at minimum. But don't do too many, you get all crazy in your head. But of course, if you don't feel connected, you keep going. But don't drag it out, because you need your process to begin. And again, some doulas don't do but one long session, and then they show up at your birth. So that's what you want to clarify, how long you want that connection to begin, and travel forward or move forward with that.
Okay, so you've chosen to do it. Now, is it expensive?
Oh, well.
Costly, on average, what's the average cost of a doula?
Well,
a range.
Okay, so I hate to talk finances because it's priceless, set. Right? There's no real set. Now, if you are newer doulas, may charge less. Newer, less experienced doulas, because they're trying to have their experience, and that's fine. Get their experience, build up their clientele, and then older doulas like me may charge more. There's some community doulas as well who work with people centric to their community. There might be free doulas, and that's some people will ask that. I mean, of course, if you can afford a doula, I mean, doulas have to work too. I mean, we're supporting.
We have to eat too.
We have to eat too. We're supporting families and our lives as well. So just kind of, we're all women surviving together in our communities.
This is your work.
This is our work. That being said, but you do like a budget, a payment plan. I mean, it's not like so the range, it can be anywhere from $450 up to $1,900. I mean, so, and again, it depends on what they're offering you. And I know, again, I call this bowling alone, just to reinforce this bowling alone in America idea. Just because you're like, oh, they have classes I can do in my home. Like, well, we need to venture out, because children and birth and families are not just inside their home. And a lot of life is reflected inside and outside. So you have that range. So somewhere in the middle is like an average that, I would say like 800-ish.
Okay. And you don't have to give it to you all as soon as I
Yeah. Okay. No, you put a deposit,
Mm-hmm.
a retainer, and then you can do a payment plan. That's negotiated. I mean, and some of it's negotiable based on you don't negotiate everything. I mean, again, because the amount of time, just think, so contextually, a doula spends gas time, if you're an entrepreneur, you know this, gas time, family time away. They're with you for up to 24 hours of their total time, separate for your labor. Sometimes, depends on the mom. But it could be up to that. And they've spent all this other time with you ahead of that. So just think about your job and what you do and that balance.
Okay.
So, I mean, many times you have clients be like, oh, I didn't even realize. Let me give you some extra money because, you know, it's a lot of time into it. And we're holding your emotional goal.
Yeah.
You know, so that
I just want to know if it's affordable. It is
affordable.
I got car seat, I got diapers, I got all of that. So I like the idea that I can put a deposit in
pay over time.
And that is an affordable option for anybody.
It doesn't matter. For anybody.
It's an affordable option for anybody.
Even when I had my child, I mean, and then you're paying for your class and stuff. I mean, that's why a lot of young people now will be like, oh, we'll just do YouTube and then we'll see you. And I'm like, okay, I can only encourage you to do the class. But at the same time, you think about this investment. But yeah, every case is different. And some people have sliding fee scales. So really find out who fits and then work within that. Okay. I mean, and I don't want to step on anybody's money. Because that's not my place.
So it's another contractual point.
It is a contractual point.
And goes into choosing who you choose.
Exactly.
Goes into who you choose.
It does. It shouldn't be the determination. Because I will tell you right now, when I started, I felt comfortable with that conversation. Because truly, call it your heart. The heart doulas are called to this practice. I had a full-time job when I started. But there was this calling to work with women in this way. I wasn't trying to be a doula to start out. I mean, now it's like a viable thing, but just it's the call to support women through this rite of passage. That's my core philosophy.
Your philosophy.
My core philosophy.
Your spiritual.
That's my spiritual part.
That's why that's women your name is inner light.
That is correct. You have your inner light, that's your own spirit, connected to the inner light, that's your child. And so that's that full spectrum of support. Looking at family, these concentric circles from, baby to mama to family and your community around that. I really believe in that process. And honor it. I always say I'm very humbled. I get emotional. I'm very humbled and very touched when somebody invites me in. I don't take a lot of clients. I try to keep my work-life balance as much as I can because I also nurture students as well. But it's really important that moms know their truth, their voice, and being a doula helps me to make sure I'm reaching my goal, my life walk with that. So.
Well, wonderful.
Thank you. You're welcome.
For doing this with me. I hope that this was informative for women and they learned a lot. And if there are questions, anyone wants to know anything, we have the expert here. We can take some questions.
There's a question. Are doulas required to be CPR certified?
Yes. I can't say that it's required. That's part of that continuing education. There's varying issues, like if they've reinforced that, but if they've done it once, they've done it. So
some people don't keep it up.
Yeah,
that's a question to ask.
But that is a good question to ask.
That's a great question.
I'll be doing the neonatal resuscitation class in another month.
Oh, that's good. So the certifications can vary. So it's good to ask if you're CPR certified, neonatal, neonatal certified.
That being said, we're not the medical person on scene, so that's
stay in your lane.
Yes, stay in your lane. So let's be clear about that. That is important. I'm doing that, but again, I've been in the game a long time.
Some do cross.
Yeah,
some can cross the line.
But some can do. But it is good to have have that in your. You should have some. I think it's okay. Look, parents need to take the CPR class. Okay, so I think let's be clear about that. And a lot of parents do not at all. So.
another question.
Mm-hmm. Yep, another question.
So, regarding postpartum, is the doula around for that, or is that an option for the mother and the family for them to stick around to help through the postpartum process?
Okay, so remember I identified the 3 different types of doula. So at the end of my care as a birth labor doula, I have, you're there immediately postpartum, the initial postpartum right after the baby comes out. It's not like, baby's here, bye. It's not that. We're there up, 2 to 4 hours after, because you have that golden hour after where the family's bonding, you have skin-to-skin support, you get them, the baby starts, just had that when the baby moves up on their own and latches.
Oh.
Anyway, I love when that happens. But getting the mom started breastfeeding, and making sure, for me, I like to, if it's a hospital birth, I like to carry my family from the labor and delivery over to mother baby care, and then that's when I leave. Make sure they're settled in over there.
Do you do home?
I do home births.
Do you come to the home after?
Yes. So for postpartum, and then I have myself. I have with up to 14 days, because people usually have things. Because sometimes it's been a time where I didn't see them for 3 months because they had so many people visiting. I also try to encourage my families not to have too many visitors right after. And not in a scary way, but just so they can have their time to get adjusted. You have your identified people. That's stuff we cover in the birth plan too.
Is that part of the contractual?
Yeah, I come, but technically I say up to 14 days, and then I like to, if the family wants it, I offer that 3-month check, because I want to also check in on perinatal depression and refer in that case. Doula does a lot of resource management. I forgot to say that. Referring to resources. If you need to have a mommy's group, if you need to have a chiropractor, if you need these other holistic practices, hence holistic doula. Just kind of really looking at, if there are remedies, moms want to know that too. So I really start to, unpack more of your well care in terms of self-care for postpartum. And then the postpartum doula might come if you want that, or encapsulator, if you want to persist encapsulated, and all that. So all these things might be resources. I connect you to people, places, things, verify kind of things you might need postpartum. So the phone calls don't stop. It's just I have targeted visits. If you want the postpartum doula, that's caring for mom, caring for other siblings, wash laundry, maybe we go to the grocery together, maybe, all that, give you a moment to take a shower, that's more engaged, and that's why postpartum doula does postpartum doula, because they want to do all the mother care, which is a very important, that 4th trimester is there. I educate on it, I might get you started, but if you need more, that's when I'm referring you to some postpartum doulas to come and do that part.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, those are all the questions.
Oh, fabulous!
Great.
Good.
Yeah. That was really informative and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that women know what a doula is and kind of know what they do, but it's way more involved. And I know that I had doulas attend my births and work with my moms, but didn't really know all of the backstory, how you really engage with your clients, and the work that you do, which is fabulous. It's a spiritual journey. Birth is a spiritual journey.
It really
physical,
is.
mental, physical, spiritual. It is all of that, and to have someone who supports you and your family through that is really important. So thank you.
Definitely is a rite of passage.
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ladies,
Thank
for
you,
watching
everyone.
today.